L. Frank Baum's life followed a course as strange and convoluted as any plot he ever devised. If one imagines a story constructed of elements mixed together indiscriminately from a Horatio Alger tale, Mark Twain's The Gilded Age, and Booth Tarkington's The Magnificent Ambersons, and leavened with fair-size amounts of Thomas Edison, P.T. Barnum, and David Belasco, one may begin to have an idea of what his life was like. Lyman Frank Baum was born on May 15, 1856, in the village of Chittenango, New York, a few miles east of Syracuse. Frank was the seventh of 9 children born to Benjamin Ward and Cynthia Stanton Baum, but 4 of the children died in infancy, and Frank himself was born with a seriously defective heart. His father and his uncle Lyman Baum, for whom he was named, owned and operated a factory located on the edge of the village that made tight barrels and butter firkins. 3 years after Frank's birth, the discovery of oil in Titusville, Pennsylvania, caused a dramatic upswing in the Baum family fortunes. Benjamin Baum immediately saw the new industry's need for good barrels, and he soon recognized the even greater possibilities inherent in becoming part of the oil industry. He began developing his own oil fields. By the time Frank was 4 years old, his family was no longer merely comfortable. They were affluent and on their way to becoming wealthy. In 1860, Benjamin bought a residential farm property just north of Syracuse that consisted of a large house and 15 acres of land. Cynthia Baum called the estate Roselawn because the gardens were filled with rosebuds. The family also acquired a large townhouse in Syracuse, but except in cold weather or when social obligations called them, they were at Roselawn. The country estate, which has been compared with Mark Twain's description of the Bolton estate in The Gilded Age, proved to be an ideal and idyllic place for the children to grow up. Roselawn and Frank's happiness there were reflected in several of his later books. He described it in Dot and Tot of Maryland. The cool but sun-kissed mansion seemed delightful after the stuffy, formal city house. It was built in a quaint yet pretty fashion, with many wings and gables and broad verandas on every side. Before it were acres and acres of velvety green lawn, sprinkled with shrubbery and dotted with beds of bright flowers. In every direction were winding paths, covered with white gravel, which led to all parts of the grounds, looking for all the world like a map. The one great shadow in Frank's childhood was heart disease, which he suffered from all his life. In early manhood, heart attacks several times caused him to fall unconscious. Later in life, he would walk the floor in agony, tears streaming from his eyes as he fought the pangs of angina pectoris. His poor health caused him to receive most of his education from private tutors, except for a year at the Syracuse Classical School and 2 unhappy years at Peekskill Military School. Nevertheless, his physical handicap does not seem to have had any emotional ill effects. Being limited to more sedate kinds of activity, reading and dreaming among them, may indeed have developed those very qualities of imagination and vision in which he later excelled. He could not join in the more boisterous games of the other children, but he was far from an inactive child. He was always becoming interested in something new and dreaming up new projects. The unusual and important thing about those youthful projects is that they were not the passing fancies of an idle child in delicate health. He mastered each one to a degree that some internal idea of excellence demanded, and rather than discarding any of them, each became part of the pattern of his life. Some hobbies, after their initial appearance, never regained dominance but always remained part of the background. Breeding prize chickens, collecting stamps, studying music, and gardening. Other projects persistently remained central, leading to his successful career, printing and writing. And one interest often outshone all the others and kept bursting in, for good or ill, throughout his life, his love of the theater. Young Frank was meant to take over the agricultural part of his father's business interests, but he early began to develop those interests that were very far removed from agriculture. Surprisingly, those new and sometimes unusual activities did not seem to cause conflict within the family. Perhaps Frank's fragile health caused his parents to be more indulgent with him, to allow him a greater range of self-expression.